Товарищи офицеры, товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, участники совещания к работе готовы. Начальник Главного оперативного управления генерал-полковник Русского. Здравия желаю, товарищи.
Dear comrades, today during the meeting, we will review the current situation in the Special Military Operation Zone and in its individual areas, and we will hear reports from the commanders of the military groups on the performance of tasks by their subordinate groups. In addition, this week, the Russian armed forces conducted a training of strategic offensive forces, during which combat training launches of all three components of the strategic nuclear forces of the Russian Federation were carried out, as well as tests of promising weapons. Let's start working. I give the floor to Valery Vasilievich Gerasimov, Chief of the General Staff. I beg. Comrade Supreme Commander, during the special military operation, the troops of the United Group continue to carry out tasks to liberate the Donetsk, the Lugansk People's Republics, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Today I will highlight two areas in particular. The first is the area of responsibility of the Center Group. Formations and military units of the 2nd and 51st Armies, advancing in converging directions, completed the encirclement of the enemy in the area of Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov. A large grouping of the armed forces of Ukraine, consisting of the 31st Battalion, has been blocked, including formations of the 25th Airborne, 79th Airborne Assault, and 68th Jaeger Brigades, as well as the 35th and 38th Marine Brigades, the 425th Separate Assault Regiment, and the 153rd and the 155th Mechanized Brigades. During the performance of combat missions, the servicemen of the 30th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade and the 439th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the 2nd Army, as well as the 9th and 110th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigades of the 51st Army, and the personnel of the Rubicon Center for Unmanned Technologies, distinguished themselves the most. The successful operation to encircle the enemy was facilitated by the infliction of complex fire damage to formations of the armed forces of Ukraine to the full depth of their operational structure, as well as the isolation of the combat area in order to disrupt the uninterrupted supply of enemy units. Currently, the Center Group faces an equally important task of destroying the encircled group of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of the Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov agglomeration. Secondly, the city of Kupyansk is surrounded in the direction of the Zapad group of forces. At the same time, the assault detachments of the 68th Motorized Rifle Division of the 6th Army, having made a detour maneuver, captured the enemy's crossings over the Oskol River south of the city, and in cooperation with the 47th Motorized Rifle Division and the 27th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 1st Tank Army, blocked the grouping of the armed forces of Ukraine on the left bank east of Kupyansk. Units of the 14th, 43rd, and 116th Mechanized Brigades of the enemy, as well as the 1st Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, are surrounded, a total of 18 combat battalions. In addition, formations and military units of the Zapad group of forces continue to successfully advance in the Krasnoarmeysk direction, and the liberation of the Yampol settlement is nearing completion. Offensive operations are also underway in other areas. Over the past 2 weeks, the North Group of troops has been successfully advancing in the southern part of Volchansk, and today more than 70% of the city has been liberated. The assault detachments of the Southern Group of forces liberated the settlements of Dronovka and Pleshievka and continue to conduct urban battles in Seversk and Konstantinovka. Units of the Vostok group of forces are developing an offensive in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhia regions. 6 settlements have been liberated. Comrade Supreme Commander, during the training of the Strategic Nuclear Forces, combat training launches of the Yars and Sineva intercontinental ballistic missiles and 2 KH-102 air-launched cruise missiles were carried out. The training goals have been achieved. The report is finished. Thank you, Valery Vasilyevich. At the end of this part of our work, I would like to note that the successes of the Russian troops in encircling the Krasnoarmeysko-Dimitrovskaya agglomeration and the city of Kupyansk, as well as the results of combat missions in other areas, were certainly made possible thanks to the heroic actions of our soldiers, sergeants, junior commanders, as well as the scrupulous work of headquarters and all levels of leadership. I would like to congratulate all the personnel of the United Group of Forces on these results. At the same time, as already noted, there is a lot of difficult work ahead to eliminate the encircled enemy formations. In this regard, I would like to draw attention to several points. First, in order to minimize unnecessary casualties, I ask you, as we have done with you before, to take all exhaustive measures to ensure the surrender of Ukrainian servicemen, those who, of course, wish to do so.
You and I know, you know better than anyone else, that this is not so easy for the soldiers of the Ukrainian army because they are being shot in the back and drones are being processed from above, destroying those who are trying to surrender. Nevertheless, this is natural on our part, and we need to act and treat the prisoners in accordance with the norms of international law and the legislation of the Russian Federation. And historically, the Russian army has always treated the defeated enemy with mercy, and we will proceed from this. We have already discussed this many times. You have reported to me about various situations that have developed in various areas of military contact. I ask you to proceed in the same mode.
And of course, during the military work to clean up these territories, everything must be done to ensure the safety of the civilian population, which the Ukrainian formations use as a human shield. All necessary assistance should be provided to local residents and measures taken to evacuate them to safe areas. The commanders of the military groups must continue to carry out a special military operation in accordance with the plan developed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces. At the same time, the priority is to ensure the safety of the lives of our military personnel. We talk about this all the time, and I know how you feel about it, and you know my approach too. We will not schedule anything for any dates or events. We will always, as we have done so far, proceed from military expediency and put the safety of the lives of our guys and our military personnel at the forefront. As for the training of strategic offensive forces, we have once again confirmed the reliability of Russia's nuclear shield. Strategic forces are capable of ensuring the national security of the Russian Federation and the Union State in full, and we have already discussed this. This is a fact that is well known to all experts in the military world. The so-called modernity of our armed forces, or rather the nuclear deterrence forces, is at the highest level, and it is probably no exaggeration to say that at least all nuclear states are at a higher level. Now about the exercise that was conducted. I would ask the Chief of the General Staff to report on one more event. I mentioned it so briefly in my opening remarks. We are talking about the test of an unlimited-range cruise missile Burevestnik, with a nuclear power plant. I know I have a report from the industry, and in general, I am aware of the estimates of the Ministry of Defense. This is still a unique product that no one else in the world has. Moreover, I remember perfectly well when we announced that we were developing such weapons, even experts of a very high level and class told me that, yes, this is a good and worthy goal, but in the historical short term, unrealizable. This was the opinion of experts, I repeat, of a high class. And now the crucial tests have been completed. There is still a lot of work to be done to put these weapons on combat duty. This is understandable. All regulations need to be implemented there. Nevertheless, the key tasks have now been achieved, as far as I understand, and I would like to hear the opinion of the Chief of the General Staff. Comrade Supreme Commander, such a test was conducted on October 21st. Indeed, its difference from previous tests is that the rocket flew for many hours, during which it covered a distance of 14,000 kilometers, and this is not the limit. Putin, at a nuclear installation? Gerasimov, on a nuclear power plant? Yes. The technical characteristics of the Burevestnik generally allow it to be used with guaranteed accuracy against highly protected objects at any distance. In addition, during the flight of the missile, all the specified vertical and horizontal maneuvers were performed, thereby demonstrating its high capabilities to bypass anti-missile and air defense systems.
And how long was she in the air? About 15 hours? And is this not the limit? Not the limit. We will need to determine, Valery Vasilievich, what kind of weapon this new system belongs to. We need to identify possible uses and start preparing the infrastructure for the deployment of these weapons in our armed forces. There is. Now, as for the enemy that is blocked in the regions you have just reported on, without any doubt, the enemy will try to unblock its groups from the outside and from the inside, both directly and through actions in nearby areas. To create conditions for this unblocking, in this regard, I have come to you here in order to hear, first of all, the opinion of the commanders of the groups, how you plan to build the combat work of the units entrusted to you in the near future, taking into account the current situation